2 by 2, 7 rows deep. And rolling up to the start-finish line. Looks like Asher going a little bit off track as the inside.
As they can. We're making an amazing dive into turn 1.
And electroshocks off. Eggful gets the move.
But MNU trying to take a move.
Big contact from 5 different punches.
Big incident with Snowdog, our leader.
As we head into town row, it's a big crash. It's a big crash between the two title contenders.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the penultimate round of our Simufur Porsche Cup Series. We have arrived in Portugal into the Algarve International Circuit, colloquially known as Portimao, where the city it is located in. Tonight, it's going to be me, Denak, Kalmari, and Wolfin Ravenloft here in the commentary booth. Going to be commenting for an exciting round of competition where it's getting to the last round now, to the penultimate round now, so there's not going to be any more chances for points.
Yeah, this is going to be one of 2 more races before we head on down to Road America, and it is super tight. I believe the top 3 are within, I almost want to say within 10 to 15 points, I want to say.
The top 3 are within 8 points of each other.
Oh, okay, so I'm vastly off.
Yeah, it is very tight at the top here. We had Jordan Johnson, who was not able to participate in the last round at all for other commitments, so that has helped our other competitors to catch up to the grid now. So it's now currently sitting Jordan Johnson, Philip Beckable tied in points, with Sarah Van Vliet right behind them with only trailing by a single point. So yeah, they are definitely going to be an uphill battle for Jordan Johnson in their Solbeck Precision Racing team there, because yeah, I mean, they've been pretty dominant in all the previous rounds they've been so far whenever they had been able to clear the field, but it's going to be Portimao. It's going to be a roller coaster. There's going to be lots of elevation change, so if there's going to be any tracks where you need to be on top of your car and make sure it doesn't spit out, it's going to be in Portimao.
Yeah, absolutely. It is not an easy track to get used to, especially with these massive height changes, because the car gets, especially when you're going down or over a crest, it gets very loose. And in these cars, it's not going to be easy because of the fact that these cars are rear-engined rear-wheel drive. It makes things so much harder. Though it's going to make competition very interesting, I hope. This is a fun track. I've raced this a couple times in a couple different sims. It's gonna make things very interesting, I think. And with how tight the field and how much the fighting has been for these past few races, I'd say we're gonna be getting a very interesting race today.
Absolutely, indeed. And this is also not the first time Simufur has raced here in Portimao, and also not in iRacing, because when we held our Simufur F4 series a couple of years back, the first round that we had our competition was actually in Portimao. It was a very rainy race back then, and I remember a lot of the drivers had some issues getting a grip on those Portimao cars, on the F4 cars around Portimao. But this time, it's all sunshine, no rain at all here. So our current competitors can just focus on getting the absolute maximum out of their cars. So you're not going to be following Palakwi Gurani, who is also one of the contenders for the top spot of the race here. They are trailing a little bit behind at 119 points compared to the 124 points of the top 2. But since it's a double race, and from both ways you get a maximum of 26 points here, there's still going to be a big chance for good points, as we see Palakwi there going quite sideways on that exit into, I think that was going to be turn 13. So yeah, our drivers are going to be pushing a lot here. From my own testing on the track as well, the cars can get very slidey, especially on those like big elevation change corners.
Yeah, it's not going to be fun. Well, I wouldn't say it's not going to be fun. It's going to be very sketchy in certain places because of the fact that these cars get so loose going over the hills, over the crests. It will make things very, I wouldn't say difficult, but it will make things very uneasy because of the fact that you are basically weightless at some points. So you could just make one tiny mistake and that could blow up into something like, say, a spin or something along those lines. And honestly, I feel like that's just going to make things a little bit more easily, or a lot more interesting, because of the fact that we're also going to have, hopefully, like within the first few laps, everybody's going to be bunched up. Nobody's really going to, like, all it'll take is just for one person to make a mistake and it could turn into a massive disaster. See, I think that was somebody pulling off the side, but that's probably because the practice session has ended and we have now entered qualifying.
Qualifying, indeed, it's going to be again that standard 20-minute qualifying format that we've had since the beginning of our series here. It's going to be open qualifying, so we're going to be seeing our drivers rolling out of the pit lane in a moment here. I don't really have much of a reference on the lap times here because I'm going to be honest, I spun most of my laps when I was trying to practice around Algarve here, but I think the lap times are going to be somewhere in those 43s, 42s, if I'm going to be correct. So we're going to be watching very closely as we see now Jordan also hitting on the track and getting those temps warmed up. So yeah, gold tires, so you've got to have to be very careful on these big elevation change, because you're like, yeah, especially here in turn 4, it's going to be a blind left turn up the hill. You need to lift a little bit on the corner to get your traction down. So you can already see a little bit of a wiggle from Jordan's car there as he tried to get on the power on this big uphill.
Yeah, it's gonna. You could see that, especially with these cold tires and everything else. It's gonna make things very interesting, and we'll find out. I think you're not far off the mark when you said it was gonna be in the 140s. I think that's gonna be about where we're gonna be for this track. I admittedly also didn't get a chance to do any like hardcore practice with this car in iRacing, but I did do some in LMU. Funny enough, but
I'm not quite sure there's a Porsche Cup in LMU.
there is not.
It's probably gonna be a different car.
But I was referring to the track itself, and it was in a GT3, so there was some comparison, a little, not a lot, but a little.
Yeah.
So I can at least make that claim.
Yeah, to be fair, the GT3s and Porsche Cups are pretty similar. The Porsche Cups just have less aero and just less assist to keep themselves on the road there. But yeah, it's gonna be now time for Jordan Johnson to go through a couple more corners heading down the hill through Sagres. I don't know, I don't speak Portuguese, so apologies for the very horrible pronunciations. Yeah, but we're going to be now watching Jordan Johnson heading down that last corner, that long sweeping turn 50 here to start their first lap around the Algarve International Circuit. Going to be now hopping on their onboard as they're going to be unleashing the power on that Porsche Boxster engine on this very, very long main straight, going downhill and then again uphill and then again downhill as they head into turn 1. It's going to be trying to find that braking point to be between these two lines here, right on the curb there. So you're going to be shooting it down into that tight Primera turn 140, bouncing all those curves right on the exit there. Nice carrying speed. They're going to be at that double right-hander before they're going to be breaking hard into the turn 3 Lagos corner here, down into first gear to get the car moved, and then it's going to be up the hill here, a little bit lift on the exit there to get the car planted right on that exit curve. Be careful to not go over those track limits there. There's going to be again another acceleration zone down another hill into turn 5, that tight hairpin again down into first gear, trying to rotate the car as neatly and tidy as possible with a nice bit of exit speed carried over onto next one, exactly into turn 6 flat out here. Then going to be turned to turn 7. You're going to be very tricky blind crest, and you need to immediately get on the brakes to hit that inside curve there, and then drifting out wide and get a slam with the brakes here into turn 8, that Samsung corner here. You can see with those big Samsung afterwards on the ground side there, and get it again, more elevation change down the hill, flat out through turn 9, heading up into the famous Portimao corner complex here. You can have many different lines here, as you can see. Jordan Johnson then decides to take a very tight inside line here, heading down into turn 11, then to turn 12, again flat out through turn 12 here, then gets slamming all those brakes into turn 30 here, trying to find that right braking point to rotate the car around here, still keep it in first gear to get that maximum exit speed here, trying to keep it as left as possible, because you're going to be immediately heading back on the brakes heading into turn 14 there, trying to get as early of an exit as possible, because that's going to be the longest acceleration zone as possible. You can lose a lot of time if you don't get your exit right here. Going to be a little bit of lift here, heading down the hill through turn 15 Gulf corner, again full power, trying to drift as wide as possible, the tires screaming for life as they get up to the exit curve there, but they managed to keep themselves on the road there. It's going to be across the finish line with a pretty respectable time of a 1:42.829, so pretty good start.
Yeah, you were far off. We were saying in the 140s, so 142 ain't that bad. Toomby with only a half a second behind. Remember, this is the first few laps as we follow along now with, I believe that is, oh god, their name for whatever reason just escaped me.
Are you talking about one of the top 3 competitors, perhaps?
Yes, yes, I'm aware. Beckevold, thank you. My brain just literally shut off. Oh my god.
Perhaps need an energy drink for yourself while we're going to be watching Philip while you're heading down into that very tricky turn 7 to turn 8 complex here. It's going to be a very awkward car because you can see the car is just sliding. It's going to be all of the power there and then just trying to get that line right. It's going to be a very tricky one. I think that I had most of my issues just getting the power down into turn 8 and the other corner complex, that's going to be very tricky. It's going to be this turn 10 to turn 11 there. You go over a blind crest. You don't see the turn coming, so you need to just nail your braking point exactly right so you can get that speed carried over into this downhill into turn 12 here. This is normally a motorcycle track where we run MotoGP races for the most part, but I do believe it also has some GT races, but the track is more oriented for those MotoGP bikes, so very long sweeping corners here with lots of elevation change. So it's going to be definitely a unique challenge for all of our road car runners.
It absolutely is, but you can see that they're adjusting. Beckevold was with a purple Sector 1, but unfortunately they lost a lot of time in Sector 2. I don't know where. As we see, Jordan Johnson has improved their time of 141.912. Let's see where Beckevold puts themselves. It's going to be P2 with a 142.5. Still way off, but remember, it is early, and they did have a rough Sector 2, so that could improve vastly as we wait for more times to come in. And there we go. Rafael Rodriguez, another one of our drivers who's been very much in the mix with a 142.2. That's going to be very interesting. Palaqui Grant with their first time with a 142.2 as well. So it's definitely, we're starting to see those times come in as we follow along with Sarah Van Viepelen heading down the main straight. Is it going to be a decent time? It is. It's going to be a 143.3, putting them in P7. That's kind of risky considering that they're only a point away, and there's somebody in the grass there. I don't know who that was. I think that was Wanev. As they come out, it was Wanev. Yeah, that was Wanev. I wonder what happened there, but it is kind of a.
I feel like it's probably going to be that inside curve there because on the inside of Turma there's a gigantic sausage curve. So if you just turn your car in too tight, you're going to be bouncing on that. So we're going to be watching now on board with Wanev. Going down the hill here on those curves and trying to get as early of an entry as possible. And yeah, no, they're fine. I think they just pushed the car a little bit too much on the exit there.
There it goes.
Just lost their car and just spins around. Yeah, so going to be careful because those elevator cheaters definitely going to be catching on if you're not careful.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, Wanev is on a keyboard, so that's got to be even more awkward as we're following. I believe.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure they've been driven with a wheel.
Is it one? Who was the one? Was it? I thought it was Wanev.
I think
he was
you're
either
mixing
Wanev
them
or
with somebody else because we have
Oh, yeah, you know what? You're right. I think
keyboard.
Yeah,
you know what? But they are not part of the series. No.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. I think they started as keyboard, and that's why I thought they were originally keyboard. I apologize. My brain didn't work.
Props to anybody who decides to drive Porsche Cups in Algarve with a keyboard. My hat goes off to you. But I don't think that's going to be happening here. Got to be Palaco Grant getting himself some improvement into a 42.242. So only a couple tenths off Jordan Johnson. But so far, nobody has been able to match their time yet. So Jordan Johnson, again, asserting that early lead in the qualifying competition already, with only Philip Becker really there to challenge him. It's been a pretty similar story in almost all the tracks we've been having here so far, where it seems like Jordan Johnson is just the driver who can extract the most out of these Porsche Cup cars there, with Palaqui Grant and maybe Philip Becker just about right shy of them, maybe a couple tenths off to try to match them.
Yeah, that's usually been the story here. But the thing about it is, when it comes to race time, it does get very dicey, especially with Philip Beckevold being able to kind of just being like maybe a tenth or two off in some places. They're literally able to keep Jordan Johnson, I would say sane. They're keep him in check, I guess is the best way to put it. And it makes racing very interesting because it slows both of them down, which then bunches up everyone else, and it has really gotten to cause like a lot of really good fights throughout the field. It's not been spread out, even with the lower numbers. It's really kept things nice and tight. So I am very excited to see where this goes, especially with the fact that Philip Beckevold's not even a tenth off. They're only 0.9098 off. So this basically means they're almost the same time. So as we see that, before I say that, Rafael Rodriguez, oh man, 142.929. They're only 1/17th off. Now we have three people within the the 141s here.
Yeah, absolutely a very tight competition at the top here. Rafa seems to have improved quite a lot throughout the season. I remember that in the early rounds there, they were actually quite far off from the top three, like almost half a second here in Virginia International Raceway and other competitions. So they've definitely upped their game, especially now in this penultimate round of our competition here. They don't seem to be improving quite a lot looking at the second time so far here. And it looks like Philip Becker would also opted to head out for a new set of tires, as did Jordan Johnson. So we're going to be seeing probably some new times coming from them as well. But speaking of Rafael Rodriguez, I'm going to have to refresh my memory on where they actually are sitting in the championship standings at the moment. Yeah, they're sitting currently at P8. So yeah, they've had quite rough first rounds. You're sitting at getting fifth and getting actually a DNF in the second round, or the
Yeah.
second part of our first round of our Porsche Cup Series in Virgin International Race. But they've definitely been improving a lot here. And if they can keep this P2 here, this is going to be some very, very good points. They would be jumping quite a few positions if they can get that kind of result. Probably all the way up into P5 even.
Yeah, I think that if they keep this up, they will at least come out around the top 5, maybe P6 at worst case scenario. So we'll just have to wait and see. They did definitely give Palakui a run for their money in the last race and at Hockenheim. So I feel like that if they keep this up and they keep going the way they're going, it's going to put them at the very least. I anticipate them to get yet another podium at some point, or maybe even a win if they're lucky. They've been close. It's just going to have. They're just going to need the cards to fall in the right spot, and I think they'll have a good chance at winning something.
Definitely going to be monitoring them very closely here. We're going to be now halfway through our competition, through our qualifying here. Still not much improvement from Jordan Johnson, but Panago Grand managed to squeeze themselves right in between Rafael Rodriguez and Jordan Johnson with a 141.922, only 9,000ths of a second off here. Top three are literally only 100th off each other here, so the competition is absolutely a hair's margin between all of them.
It is like you could spit and you could pass 3 of these people without tight everything is. Look at how hard, look at how tight how hard Jordan is pushing this car. They got very loose going out of turn 2, and it almost looked like they spun. And speaking of spun, that is somebody who spun there. I don't know who that was, but they were able to kind of slide out of the way as Jordan comes down the hill, heading toward, I believe this will be turn 5, the hairpin, and on their way to turn 6. So far they're looking pretty good. I don't think this is going to be an improvement because they did have that itchy moment in turn 1 as we continue to follow along with them here, heading up the hill now toward, I believe this will be either turn 8 or this is out of turn 8 on their way to turn 9, flat out on their way to the Portimao complex. It's definitely looked like a good run, but I don't know if it's gonna improve or if it's just gonna stay the same.
It doesn't look like they're doing a lot of improvement on this lap so far here. But we did see an improvement from Katie Timberfox sitting at just a P6, getting themselves a 142.619. So really good running from them. But we're going to keep our attention on Jordan Johnson here, heading down the hill. Got to be those final 2 corners here. It's got to be this little long sweep in 14, cyclist corner, then into turn 15 of Guype here. It's really got to be a crucial part of your lap here. It's got to be the turn 14, turn 15 complex here, because you need to be on the power really early into turn 14 to get your power down, and then it's going to be only a tiny lift heading down the hill into turn 15. That's going to be costing you massive amount of stop if you can't get that run right here. Going to be across the line for Jordan Johnson, but they are a second off their previous lap time, so I think they're still warming their tires up to get a proper set this time around.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, they did have a squirrely moment out of this, so I think they just abandoned that lap almost immediately. And now we can see Sarah Van Viepelen is out on their hot lap as well, heading out of turn 1. They're not too far behind Jordan, so they're kind of out, and they don't really have a draft. But Rafael Rodriguez does. They're not too far behind Sarah Van Viepelen, and they are the faster car. They may be able to get close enough to where they can maybe get a draft and maybe try to eke out a little bit of time here as they head down toward turn 5, the hairpin. And it looks like, yeah, you can see that Rafael Rodriguez in the background there is slowly but surely kind of inching closer to Sarah Van Viepelen. And if, again, like I said, if they're able to get maybe like a little bit of a draft and maybe keep behind them without losing too much time, they may be able to improve on their time.
That is very much possible indeed, but they don't seem to be getting too close there. I think the only place where you could really gain a lot from getting a tow from another car would be on this main straight after turn 15. Because if you are too close to a car behind in turn 15, you're going to be suffering from that dirty air, from that aero wash. They are not quite as F1, not quite as sensitive to aero changes as the F1 cars, but they absolutely going to be feeling it if they go too close behind in turn 15, so they're going to drop down there. So we've got to be keeping attention on Simufur. They seem to have got themselves a small improvement in Sector 1, but they don't seem to be too far up here. But we've got to be keeping their eye on a nice exit from turn 14 all the way out onto the curbing here, then just left off into that downhill turn 15 here, unleashing them, trying to get as maximum exit speed as possible here. That's going to be up the hill again and across the line. Let's see if they're going to be getting any improvement at all. Rafael Rodriguez definitely not close enough to get any more time. So no, that's not going to be an improvement from Van Vliet either here. So I think they're probably going to be trying again, sorry, for a couple more minutes here. We only have 5 minutes left of our competition to go. And that was also an improvement from Jordan Johnson to get this as a 41.865, followed immediately by Beckevold with a 41.903. So the competition is absolutely getting tight. And that's going to be 4 drivers vying for that top spot.
Yeah, it's 4 drivers, not even within a tenth of each other. This is going to shape up to be a very interesting final few laps because, like you said, you have 5 minutes left out of this qualifying session, and it is, if it's not close, if it wasn't close before, it's definitely going to be close now. But you can see that, oh man, Beckevold went a little bit wide going out of the hairpin. I believe that lap will be invalidated, unfortunately, and that's not what you want, especially now. You don't have many laps left, and with the field being so tight, you know you can just eke out those little bit more, and that's all you'll need to get pole. As we see Beckevold heading down the hill, heading toward turn 9, and then on their way to the Portimao complex. It is definitely gonna be a really tight race, I think, for this for today, with how close the times
absolutely, indeed. Top 4 all within a tenth of each other here, and behind that it's going to be Van Vliet in 5th, and they're half a second off. So these top 4 definitely have been practicing a lot to get their car and set up and nailed down just perfectly for this Portuguese track here. They seem to be going a little bit slow here in turn 14, so I think they're just setting themselves up for another run for probably one of their last couple attempts around Portimao here, followed closely behind by One-Off, but I don't think One-Off's going to be worrying too much about going in front of them. I think One-Off might be hoping to get a bit of a tow from Beckevold right behind them to get themselves a bit like another 10th or 2 into the main straight here, but it's going to be now eyes on Beckevold here. See if they can get that improvement that they were wanting here. Going to be shooting down into turn 1 there to get themselves as close to that inside curve there as possible. They're simply doing pretty good so far. We also saw an improvement in the background here from Toombi to get themselves a 42.695. They're going to be P7 sitting just behind getting them box. So even though the top 4 is in a different league of their own here, right behind them from P5 to P8, the gaps are still pretty close.
Yeah, the gaps are not, like, everywhere is close. I mean, the top 10 are only, the difference between all of them is within a second. So it's not like there's vast gaps everywhere. Everyone looks like they have a little pack to work with, because you can see that even beyond that, that the top 10, like the other 6 drivers, they're only within, I want to say, I think the worst that I see is maybe like over a second, or maybe a second or 2. But I feel like it's going to make things very interesting, quite not only in the front pack but in the mid pack as well.
Absolutely, indeed. And with about 2 minutes left to go here, I think there's got to be only 1 or 2 more laps all of our competitors can do before they're going to have to call, and the qualifying session is over. We're still keeping our eye on Beckevold here, heading now down through turn 14 and turn 15. They have a bit of traffic ahead of them, but that should not be interfering with them too much. In fact, if they can get close enough to Rodriguez, I believe that's going to be the car ahead of them. They might also benefit from a small tow heading into the main straight here. So let's see, going to be keeping it nice and tight on that inside line there, and again washing out wide to the exit curb in turn 15. That's going to be unleashing the power there. Let's see as they cross the line. It's pretty early on the left here. It's not going to be an improvement. No, it's going to be a 42 flat. So still a couple of tenths off here, but they're going to be pushing again to the maximum. But with traffic ahead of them, I don't think they're going to be having. Nope, they're going to be off the track here. That might be it for them. Yeah, they're just pulling over the track. So that's going to be keeping our attention on Jordan Johnson, who has also been trying really hard to get themselves some more improvement. I think that's going to be Kate Timberbox right behind them also. Actually, quite a big, long line of cars here, looks like, on the track there. Maybe hoping to get some toes off each other.
Yeah, it looks like it. As you see Jordan Johnson, oh no, that's very wide going out of hairpin. So that's lap invalidated. as they head out of the hairpin. Looks like they've pulled off, and I think they are also done because there's not going to be enough time to really set up anything. We're now following Katie Timberfox as they head up the hill on their way to turn. I believe this will be turn 8, and it looks like
This is
they
turn 9.
are
This is going to be up into
turn
turn
9.
10,
Yeah,
11. This is
yeah,
Portimao right
yeah,
here.
yeah. We have Portimao corner. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm always off by 1. I don't understand it. I'm
There's
always
a
off
map
by 1.
right there. You can look at the map. That helps.
I am looking at them. I had it alt tapped. Okay, I was looking at live timing.
Either way, Katie Box getting a nice exit off turn 13, heading down now into turn 40 here, trying to get that good exit speed while trailing by, I think it's like 2 or 3 cars right behind, hoping to maybe get some toe off the trans-colored car. I think they were really wide on the exit. I think, not sure if they were valid or not, but we're going to watch them as they go for that final shootout. They actually might run out of time here as well, looking at how close the time is. And
yeah, it looks like it was invalidated.
Opting to not do any more running here. It's gonna be Palico now across the finish line there, but that's going to be qualifying over no more improvement. That's going to be Jordan Johnson locking out that front row spot with a 41.865, but there's 3 cars right behind them, all within a tenth of each other, all hoping to get ahead of that Solpec position racing team car, as they put it in their info.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. This is going to be a very tight race. All it will take is for Jordan Johnson to make one mistake off launch, and it will open the door. It will open Pandora's box in the worst way possible, I think. And I almost want to, say that very well might happen, just because I don't know. I'm just getting this weird feeling. It was just how close this field is. Something is bound to happen. At the start of this race, as we get ready to start round 5, I believe. Yeah, everybody's starting to grid up, so we should be getting ready to go soon.
We'll see. With how Portimao is laid out here, I don't think there's going to be many overtaking happening into turn 1. The big overtaking opportunity is going to be after turn 1, turn 2, into turn 3. It's going to be that first hairpin before that long sweeping right-hander here. So we're going to be keeping our attention there. Though some people might feel brave to try and set it up on the inside into turn 1, but there's going to be that big saucer curb on the inside, ready to unsettle any car that might think about that. So all things that our competitors are thinking about as they're going to be getting lined up for this nice sunny afternoon here in Portugal.
Yeah. We're going to be getting ready to go soon. I believe everybody is up and ready to go. The lights should be going up very soon, so hopefully...
I think we're missing someone here, as you can see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
we're missing...
Jordan.
Yeah, we're missing Jordan. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
there they are.
There we are. I think there's maybe one more car behind that has not grid up yet. So we got maybe about a minute here. So time to catch your breath, get some water here, get yourself hydrated before it's going to be time for us to lose our voice for the next 30 minutes.
I came prepared. I brought another soda.
Good. 1 more minute left to go here. So Jordan is going to be having that outside line here. No, it's going to be everybody grid up here and ready to go here. It's going to be 5 flights now, ready for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everybody revving up. It's going to be go time. A very poor launch from Jordan Johnson. It's going to be now Billy Bickup with there. Cutting up on the inside line there with Jordan Johnson forced to take that defensive tight on the inside there. Going to be again sweeping outside. No, they're still going to hold that lead. There's going to be Palico.
Oh, look at Palico. Oh, no!
It's going to be 2 cars. It's going to be both of them out. And it's going to be called that. It's going to be a huge wreck. It's going to be massive. That's going to be huge for this championship fight. It's going to be Palico and Billy Bickup, both of them touching each other, spinning out in turn 1. I think that's also Pascali there, also in the background, getting collected in that unfortunate incident. So that's going to be huge. It's going to be Sarah Van Fieblen, followed by Rafael Rodriguez there in the top 3. That is huge.
That was massive. I don't know what happened there. It almost looked like there was like a little bit of a quarter panel or something touched, and they just spun. And unfortunately, that just costed them so much. And they were so close to it. Just did not work out for them. But who it did work out for was Jordan Johnson. And that is going to be so unfortunate as we follow again and look at the replay. Here they go. You can see Beckevold just sends it on the inside. And yeah, oh no. I think that was on Beckevold. It looked like they just kind of sent it on the inside and just tapped the inside of Palico Grant, causing them both to spin.
Yeah, that bit of understeer on their Porsche Cup car just caused them to drift out into Palico's rear quarter panel and spin them both around it. I think that was also Pescetti collected in that incident with a bit of a bonk from Inigo Lopez as well. So all of them carrying damage here. You can see massive damage on that car there, but Berkebot is not giving up. They're just trying to hustle their way through the gear, trying to minimize the damage as much as possible. Now they got Ruben Savage, they got Inigo Lopez, they got Velox that there are a lot of cars that they're going to have to try to muscle their way through, followed right behind, or right in front of them, actually. It's going to be Palico Grant there. So it seems like Palico and Becca was still going through there, but I don't know how drivable those cars are going to be after that kind of wreck.
I think Pally may have the advantage because when I watched it, it looked like Paliquid did not get really any damage. The only thing that they're going to have to worry about is tires because of the spin. As you can see, he's pulling away pretty hard. I think they lucked out because I know that Beckable definitely did get hit, but I think Pally was very fortunate in that they kind of were in the middle of the pack, and everybody was able to more or less avoid
That in
them.
their spot again! No! Futaku tapping Palico Grant in the rear there, caused them to have even more damage, and they're going to be all of that progress they tried to make, it's gone, be nullified after one lap. Palico Grant is just not having any luck at all here. We're going to be seeing that replay of that again here. Futaku is right behind them, trying to get maybe another send on Palico to get ahead, but no, they seem to just
No, it
be
wasn't
unexpecting.
They
Yeah,
drove into them.
Yeah, I think just they didn't really anticipate Palico being that slow in the hairpin there. It just caused them to spin around. So it's getting Palico Grant again in last place, the absolute last place he wants to be.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate. Just everything went wrong there, and it just like I don't know what happened. Like that's just so unfortunate. Now Pally has to try again. I mean, it's still early on, but still, that's just so unfortunate. You can see that. I believe that is Pally right there behind them. They were able to kind of quickly recover, but now at this point, like, what do you do if you're Pally? Oh, that's Indigo behind them. And at that point, it's like, what do you do? Because you know this is the worst case scenario for them.
Yeah, absolutely not the place they want to be. That's going to be huge implications for the championship fight as well here. So it's going to be Jordan Johnson getting away with a clean sweep at the moment. Van Thielen behind them is a second and a half behind them already. They're actually trying to defend from Rafael Rodriguez that is right behind them. All of them extending those track limits quite a lot in the exit of turn one. They're trying to get as much speed as possible, trying to get around Van Thielen there, but no, Van Thielen is still holding on there. But that's also going to be Doomby right behind them, also hoping to get that sneaky top three position right there at the end. There's going to be now that long straight here, mid straight here before that's going to be that turn 5 hairpin. Doesn't look like Rafael Rodriguez is quite in the zone to make a move happen yet here. It's going to be in these middle parts. It's going to be hard to overtake. We're going to be seeing overtake happening from Pescetti. Banusidan here trying to dive up on the inside into turn 5. Also followed by Nico Lopez there on the side as well. Both of them trying to capitalize on those nice tight inside moves there. Looks like both of them just about squeeze ahead there. That's got to be inside turning into the outside, so it's going to be still Newbie trying to hold on there, but no, Newbie ended up stalling behind them, so it's going to be two cars overtaking at the same corner here. So good driving from both, but it's again!
Oh
it's
no,
another
that's
contact! It's Futaku again, tapping another Bluey car on the rear, spinning them around. This is absolute disaster. Oh no!
What on earth? That is just crazy. That's twice now they've done it, and twice now they've just run away with it. Like, you know, that's
oh no!
like, what happened here? Did they just?
Yeah, there was a half-hearted move on the inside from Futaku, it looks like, but yeah, there was just not really space for there to make that move, and they just understeered wide and hit Suzuka, Inigo Lopez there around, so that's going to be, looks like civil war. Like, no, it's going to be war between Rotor Racing and Bluey at this point with how many cars they have taken out.
Oh boy, that is not the day for Bluey, and at the worst possible time. As you can see, Rafael Rodriguez trying again to make a move on Sarah Van Vliet, but you can see that Jordan Johnson has slowly but surely been pulling away here, and it is going to make I think at this point Jordan doesn't really have anyone to worry about, as his two closest rivals, which were Philip Beckerbold and Palico Grant, both unfortunately taken out early in the race, and now it's just at this point it's just try to keep ahead. But you can see that Sarah Van Vliet is not too far behind. The gap is not that far. So if Jordan were to make a mistake, it would be the end here, as we follow along now with Rafael Rodriguez just sitting right behind Sarah Van Vliet as she tries her best to defend.
The gap did shrink a little bit between Van Vliet and Johnson there in the first half of the lap here, but I think it just could be due to the lap difference here. And yeah, it's going to be Palico Grant and Beckerbold, the two main rivals, lost all the way back down to the back of the field. So, and Rafael Rodriguez, the only other car that was in the same kind of space as Johnson here, currently stuck behind Van Vliet here, unable to find a way around there. But it does look like Van Vliet is going to be making some good hustle, but no, that's going to be Van Vliet going very wide on the exit of turn 13 here, giving an opportunity for again, it's again going even wide in turn 14 there. So I think they seem to be struggling a little bit with traction on that car here, giving an opportunity for Rodriguez to inch themselves even closer. That's going to be a very good slipstream. But no, it's also Jordan Johnson also very slow there. They've also lost like half a second to Van Vlieten and Rodriguez. They're going to be all within a slipstream.
They're losing more time.
But that's going to be Rodriguez now with the biggest slipstream of them all here, hounding right on the rear bumper of that pink and white orangey racing car. They're going to be having a peek up on the inside, hitting into that tight.
Oh, we've seen this not work before.
No. Van Vlieten getting that exit speed to stay ahead there, but yeah, the competition is getting closer. It looks like Jordan Johnson also struggling there a little bit with their car. They are losing time to these competitors right behind them.
Yeah, I wonder what's going on with Jordan. I wonder if maybe they burnt their tires or something on the start. We know they had a rough launch, but I don't think it was anything that bad. As we follow along now with Rodriguez, they unfortunately have now kind of settled back again between Sarah Van Vlieten. As you can see that Van Vlieten is again just kind of like just right behind them. If Van Vlieten keeps P2 here, I believe it would still put them not too far behind Jordan, which would mean that really at that point all they need to do is just not survive. They need Jordan to have kind of a big incident on the last race, and they could have a shot at winning this thing. But right now that's then. This is now, as you can see, look at how close Rafael Rodriguez is on the bumper of Sarah Van Vlieten. That was very close. It almost looked like their bumpers kind of touched there for a second, but they were able to keep it going. Now heading up, I believe this will be turn 13 onto 14, and you can see look at how much of a better launch that Rodriguez gets going out of that corner, but they just aren't able to get the job done.
Not quite there. And also, Jordan just has to be able to extend the gap down to over a second, almost 2 seconds at this point here. So there's going to be no more tow for Van Vlieten here, heading onto this long main street here. So this could be the best opportunity for Rodriguez there to make a set happen here. But they don't seem to be making that move. They're just going to be falling right behind them, maybe hoping for.
Are you sure about
they're going to be sending it. They're going down. They're going to be diving deep into turn one. They're going to be sorting themselves right in front of Van Vlieten here over that nice, beautiful set on the inside. But there's going to be still one more braking start here where Van Vlieten can try to make a send happen again. But no, it's going to be never mind. It's going to be Van Vlieten getting up on the outside there with Rodriguez losing a bit of traction on the exit speed there, trying to get right up alongside. There's going to be a drag race heading into turn 5 there. They're still fighting, and Toomey right behind them, hoping to capitalize on any mistakes that might happen for these two cars. They're going to be diving hard into the brakes into the turn 1 here. It's going to be a nice hairpin move there. Van Vlieten is still squeezing through, but no, Rodriguez is still there. They're still side by side, but no, Rodriguez seems to be sliding right behind them, but maybe they're thinking about another send. They're there. They're going to be moving hard. They're almost touching, but no, they're still within an inch of each other, but no contact so far. But all this fighting, there's Toomey now joining this fight here.
Yeah, look at that. Toomey's right there behind them. They've been taking advantage. I noticed that they tried to take the outside line with Rafael Rodriguez, thinking that they'd have the momentum, but it wasn't the case. Look at this, Rafael looking on the outside. We're not able to make the move done. Heading out of the Portimao complex, down the hill, heading toward turn 12 and into turn 13. You can see that Sarah Van Vlieten once again was able to get a little bit of a gap, and it's able to save them a little bit. But for how long remains to be seen. They've been very strong in the sector 1 in the first few corners, but they've not been able to get the job done. They've gotten very close, but it's just no cigar. Heading now down toward turn 15, heading up the hill toward the start-finish line. You can see Sarah with a little bit of a better launch going out of the corner, so it's giving them a little bit of breathing space, but not by much. Look at Rafael Rodriguez; they're right behind them. This has happened before. Is it going to happen again? Here we go into turn 1. Are they going to make the move? No, they're not. They're going to settle in, and they're going to maybe try to make a move in the hairpin. Here we go into turn 2 and into turn 3. You can see how close that they are getting into the corners, but they've just not been able to kind of see a move. You can see that Rafael gets a little bit of a wiggle going out of turn 3. That could cost them massively as they head down toward the hairpin. Here we go, heading down the hill toward turn 5. Are they going to make? Is there anything that's going to happen? No, I don't think so. I think they're just going to have to rebuild because of that wiggle.
Yeah, not quite there. Rodriguez is stuck in a German Porsche sandwich between Toomey and Van Vlieten right around them, but it looks like they've actually lost a bit of ground to Van Vlieten now, heading out of the exit of turn 5. It looks like Van Vlieten can just get the power down a lot better than Rodriguez, and also a bit of a wiggle there from the exit of turn 8 there into the Samsung corner, giving themselves even more gap to Van Fleet, giving an opportunity for Toombi to catch up even closer. That's going to be, again, another break on into turn 10, turn 11, that Portimao complex there, trying to get that exit speed as high as possible. I think Van Fleet missed their apex there a little bit, but no, it's going to be now Rodriguez starting to defend themselves from Toombi, who is right behind them. So it looks like the dynamics flipped right around on its head here, with Van Fleet managing to get away from this fight right behind them. It's not going to be Rodriguez trying to defend from Toombi.
Yeah, it looks like it. Rafael Rodriguez, I think, maybe burnt a little bit more of their tires than they expected, and the tires are getting, they maybe caused a little bit of an issue, but now they've got to defend instead of attack. You can see, look at how close the Toombi got there. They had a little bit of a better run going out of 14 and into 15, but unfortunately there was no goings on there. As you can see, the field again evening out as they head toward turn 1. I believe they're just going to kind of follow along again and maybe try to make a move later down the line. But I've also noticed something else. You can see that in the background, Katie Timberfox, she has been actually gaining on this little pack here, so this may turn into a 4-way fight later down the line.
For me, about potentially a 5-way fight as well, because I'm looking at Jordan Johnson's latest stat that was a 43-4 compared to the 42s, and 43 fats ran by the cars behind them. So it seems like either some mistake or a slowdown that Jordan Johnson is suffering with is keeping them within striking range of the cars right behind them. So Jordan Johnson definitely not feeling completely safe in the clear at the moment here, as they have 4 cars potentially scrubbing right behind them. We also now see a fight happening again between Beckebold and Banu Sitonen, heading out of a turn 5 into that turn 6 into turn 7. They're hoping to maybe get another move, try to minimize the damage they gained from that big inset they had in turn 1. Looks like Paschetti really wide on the exit of turn 8 there, losing that exit speed. There's going to be given an opportunity for Beckebold to get even closer there. They're actually looking to vie for an overtake already into turn 9 and then into turn 10. They don't seem to be doing that just yet. They're just going to be waiting for a good launch through into turn 11 down that big downhill corner here. Beckebold getting closer and closer to this. Could be an opportunity for them to make a send happen through in turn 13 here. Yeah, gonna be diving deep on the inside. Almost gonna be touching. They touched and they indeed touched, and unfortunately Beckebold has to back out of that. Beckebold definitely looking quite impatient to try and get back up to the field.
Yeah, I mean, but they already are in a decent spot. They are in P7, so they will be able to get the reverse grid. So that's going to be a massive help to them, at least for the race too. So I would say, like, I don't know. I feel like that. I would say, at this point, I would say calm down on a little bit on seeing red. You're in a decent spot. Don't push too hard. I saw that we look at that.
Jordan is pushing too hard. They had a slowdown. They're within a second of V-Blood again here. Jordan Jones is not able to keep that car within track limits. They're now actually within tow of Van Vleepen and Rodriguez there. So Jordan Jones needs to get their act together because they're going to be under threat very soon here. Again, they're missing that apex a little bit into turn 5. They're losing them even more time here. That's going to be losing themselves even more ground. Toombi seems to have lost a little bit on the little top 3 fight there, but the fight has reawoken, and Jordan Johnson needs to get up on their act there. It's got to be again a bit too wide into turn 8 there. So yeah, looks like they're definitely not making it easy for themselves.
No, they aren't. We did predict that the things were going to happen on this race, and we were not disappointed. You can see Jordan again, like they're having a rough time. I don't know what's going on here, but you can see Sarah Van Vleepen is taking full advantage. And they are only within half a second of Jordan Johnson as they head up. I believe this will be turn 12 into turn 13, heading toward the hairpin in turn 13. You can see that they're fairly close, and Rafael Rodriguez again sitting on the bumper of Sarah Van Vleepen. It's worked for them before. It may work again, but I don't think they're going to be. I think they're just out of range to try to make a move like they've done before. And you can see Jordan again starting to pull away after suffering that slowdown. Here we go, heading down the main straight. You can see Sarah Van Vleepen right behind Jordan Johnson with Rafael Rodriguez right behind her. Heading into turn 1, is there going to be anything going? No, there is not. You can see that the field has bunched up a little bit. Well, look at that. Rafael Rodriguez is going to be absolutely sending it into turn 3, but there was no time coming, and I think that may have been just a little bit too soon, and I think it's going to cost them way too much time. I don't think the risk was there.
Yeah, there was just not enough space for Rafael Rodriguez to make that send stick, so they're going to have to try again later on in the lap there, but they are still within striking range of Van Vleepen here, both in getting a nice exit of turn fight here, trying to get themselves as close as possible. There's also going to be a fight between Beckenbauer and Pescetti again. It's going to be that fight reawoken here. A big dive from Beckenbauer to get upon the inside of Pescetti there, and they seem to finally make it stick here, but no, they're still hanging on. Pescetti right on the rear bumper of that HP Printer Porsche Cup car here, but I think they're going to be backing out that in the end. That's going to be Beckenbauer through into P6. Now going to be trying to chase down the top line. It's going to be almost contact between the RNG racing car and the HP car there. Oh, I think Beckenbauer was picking a bit too early than Pescetti was anticipating. That's going to be losing them quite a bit of time there, but no, it's going to be Beckenbauer in P6. They're going to be hitting down to try and catch to this top 5 fight.
Yeah, here we go. We're back to this fight again. You can see that Jordan Johnson again is pulled away a little bit, but not by much. They are within outside the drafting range over a second, drifting between 1.2 and 1.3. You can see that Sarah Van Beekman had a much better exit going out of turn 14 and on their way to 15. I think maybe Rodriguez had another bit of an incident or something, because that is a lot of time lost. I think they're just out of, they're close to being without a drafting range of Sarah Van Beekman, which does not bode well for them as they head down into turn 1. They're going to have to make up all that ground again.
Not at all there, and the gaps are getting even larger still here, so I think the tires are starting to reach the end of their useful tire life here with about 12 minutes of the race to go here. The gaps are also extending between Panu Pescetti, Seaton, and Philip Beckenbauer here as well here. So Beckenbauer is definitely the fastest of this lower half of the grid here, just trying to get up, so catch up into KD10 Fox. I think the best that Beckenbauer can wish for at this moment is just trying to get themselves into P5 to minimize the damage they had lost there. Though they are going to be losing a lot of points here. Jordan Johnson is going to be absolutely jumping ahead in the standings here. So it's going to be all down to how the cards are going to play out in that reverse grid to race through.
Yeah, agreed. And unfortunately, it's unfortunately nothing for Palique, but you can see they make it a point there. I just noticed that they have set the fastest time of this race, a 1:42.048. So they will at least get something, but unfortunately, it's not going to be that much, and they've still got a ways to go. Unfortunately, I don't think, unless they get within that top 10, I think Pali may be in deep trouble.
That could be a very, very bad for the championship standings here. Best thing that Palique can do at the moment is try to get at least to that top 10 spot there, so they can then start on pole for race 2 and minimize the damage they have caused there. But it's gonna be keeping our attention on this fight between Van Viepen, Rodriguez, and Tomb here. Looks like Van Viepen is able to extend that gap between Rodriguez even more. They're almost outside of that 1 second gap here, with Toombi right behind them, sitting at 0.6 seconds. In fact, it's got to be over a second already between Rodriguez and Van Viepen here. But in fact, it's actually Jordan Johnson losing a bit more ground to Van Viepen as well here. So the pace between these top 4 drivers seem to be swinging quite a lot here between those low 42s and the 43s here, depending on how well you get your track here. So it seems to be a track with a lot of lap time bias, which is keeping this fight very, very close.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You can see the gaps it's been swinging back and forth, and it's just come down to small mistake after small mistake as we come down the hill following this little fight here. As you can see, Rafael Rodriguez is gaining a little bit of time, but they are just out of really any range to make a fight at the moment. You can see that everything's kind of just, it kind of evened out, and I don't know, I mean, we still got 10 minutes left, so anything could happen, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, I guess.
What we just saw happen is that Rodriguez lost their rear a little bit on the exit of turn 8 here, giving Toombi the opportunity to get themselves even closer into the Portimao corner here. Looks like Rodriguez got themselves a nice tight exit into the downhill turn 11 there, so they're keeping their position here so far, but they seem to be really, really pushing the car, and they're also suffering for it because they're just losing those positions here, losing the time, they're losing the ground, which is going to be putting themselves right into the arms of Toombi here. And they're almost in touching range heading into turn 14 here, so this could be the best opportunity for Toombi now to get around Rodriguez there, because they are now, Rodriguez is now 1.4, almost a second and a half away from Sarah Van Viepen ahead of them, so they're not going to be getting any tow. Meanwhile, Toombi is going to be getting a huge tow on the exit. It looks like they drifted really wide, so they're going to lose that speed even more on the exit of this long main straight here. So Toombi is going to be inching themselves closer and closer. I don't think there's going to be enough time or space to make a move in turn 1 here, but there could be something happening in turn here. We're going to be watching here very closely here. Going to be shooting themselves down hard into turn 1, but no, Toombi is wide. They're going to be losing a lot of ground there. They might even suffer a slowdown from that, so no, that's going to be no overtake so far, so they're going to have to try again later.
Yeah, it looks like they just drifted a little bit too hard and were not able to get the job done. But look at behind them. Katie Timberfox, again, she's been kind of just sitting in the back of this fight this entire time, but it's played out massively for her because you can see that they're within a second now of this fight here, and if she plays her cards right, she may be able to gain at least a spot off Toombi because of how hard these three have been pushing.
I bet she has a huge bowl of popcorn in her hands watching this fight unfold ahead of her, and now she's going to be part of that fight here. All of them going really wide on the track limits of turn 8 there before they got it heading down into turn 9, then into turn 10. There are no changes in position so far here. This is going to be a very crucial corner here. All of our drivers are trying to carry as much speed as possible, trying to get as close to that tight apex into the exit of turn 11 there. Looks like everybody got themselves nice and clear. The gaps are staying about the same. But again, it's going to be another tight break is on heading into turn 30 here. Looks like both of them got themselves a nice and tidy one. I think to be managed to get themselves a little bit of a better run here, heading into now turn 40. The gap is now down to only 4/10, but no, they lost their car a little bit and lost that traction, got to be crossing out a bit wide there. So it's got to be now to this final, very important, very fast downhill right-hander here. Both of them just touching that inside yellow zone here. Not got quite of a curb here. Looks like Toombi is now even closer to Rodriguez as they were from last lap around here. Gap is now shrinking down from 3/10 to 2/10. So it's going to be down to only 2.5 tenths, maybe down to 2/10. That's going to be heading into turn 1. There's going to be another opportunity for Toombi to just set it, carry as much speed as possible into turn 1. They look to be a lot nearer this time around here. So they're getting really close here, but it's still not quite in that striking range here. They're going to be still staying right behind them, waiting for another lap. But no, it's going to be Rodriguez really slow on the exit. They lost the car on the exit there, so it's going to be actually catching up Toombi. So they weren't right in the correct spot to make that thing happen. But there's again now only 2/10 heading into this tight braking zone off that turn 5 hairpin here. Toombi is looking a little bit on their side mirrors here, hoping to maybe unsettle Rodriguez even more here. But they're still no chasing position so far. But Rodriguez is definitely feeling the pressure there. They're making those mistakes.
Yeah, we called it. It was going to take all it takes is a little bit of mistake here, and anything can happen. And you can see Rodriguez is just really feeling the pressure here. Look at how close Toombi is. They're right on the bumper of Rodriguez. As they go a little bit wide, going out of the corner, this could be the moment that Toombi needs. Here we go, heading down the hill, on to turn 9, going up the hill again, heading to the Portimao complex. Is Toombi going to try to make a move after the Portimao complex? Here we go, heading down the hill again, heading toward turn 12 and into turn 13. So far, it looks like Rodriguez was able to get a little bit of a gap heading up toward turn 13, but not by much. Here we go, out of turn 13 and on their way to 14. This is the critical moment. Here we go. Are they going to be able to kind of keep the car stable and straight? Yes, they are. Here we go, down into 15. It looks like they had a much better launch this time and are now opening the gap on Toombi. So I think they were able to breathe a sigh of relief, at least for now.
For one lap at least there. They have that gap still within a half a second there, but it's got to be keeping our attention now on Palico Grant, who has now caught up to Starkey Faraday, the Echo Racing team. This is going to be the crucial spot for Palico Grant to get this so they can get up into that first spot or into the top row of the next race here. Going to be chasing down that Echo Racing team car here with Faraday. Starkey actually taking that very tight defensive inside there, hoping to hold off this assault from Palico Grant there. But no, they're going to be still going side by side. It's going to be Palico Grant diving deep up on the inside, almost touching bumpers. They're going to be just the pout squeezing ahead of that Echo Racing team car there, and now in the top 10. This is going to be crucial for Palico Grant to minimize the damage they lost.
Yes, they are now in P1 as for race 2. That is a big thing, as we can see. I think there was a caution. I think Panu Seaton had an incident because they've lost their position to Newbie. We'll have to wait and see as we get a replay. Yeah, well, here we go. This is Newbie and Panu Seaton, and this was a little bit of a fight here. Going out of I believe this is turn 5, or on their way to turn 5. Look at this send. Did Panu get a slowdown? Because it looks like they just sent it on the inside and let them by.
Indicates that there's a slowdown, so it's very likely that they just extended those track limits too much and got themselves a slowdown. The exact same thing that happened to Jordan Johnson. And speaking of Jordan Johnson, they are now almost 3 seconds clear of Van Vliet, Rodriguez, Toombi, and Timberfox, so they're not going to be worrying too much. But Rodriguez is absolutely sweating bullets as they're heading down into 14, into 15 here, trying to hold off that advance from the German racing driver right behind them in that black battered car right behind them. It's going to be getting some really close. This is the closest gap this has been ever before. Gap is already now down only to 2/10 as they're going to be shooting themselves down fast into that main straight here. Toombi almost in the rear bumper. They're going to be having a peek up on the inside, trying to unsettle Rodriguez, I'm pretty sure, trying to keep them in their mirrors, trying to keep that pressure on, that just keep hoping for that opportunity for them to crack, and still no no moves here so far, but they're getting really, really close there. Both of them with a really good exit, but it seems like an even better exit from Toombi here, heading up the hill into turn 4, into that very crucial break zone, into turn 5 here. I think the gap has now extended a little bit more here. Actually, it looks like Rodriguez got themselves the better launch of the two cars there, so it's still no change in position so far, but Toombi is making sure to just stay in Rodriguez's mirrors here, moving left, moving right, making sure that they're always going to be there, making sure that Rodriguez definitely does not forget it, saying, hello, I'm here, I'm ready to take you.
Yeah, and it could happen at any moment. You could see how close that Toombi has been to Rafael Rodriguez, and it is so close. Like, all it would take is for one tiny mistake and they could get the position. We're now heading out of turn 9 on our way to turn 10, I believe, and now you can see out of the Portimao complex heading down the hill. You can see that Rafael has a little bit of an advantage going out of the Portimao complex, but they don't hold it for very long. Look at how close that Toombi is heading into turn 13. They aren't close enough, but they're definitely getting there. Now on the turn 14, this is going to be the crucial part. Look at how much of a better launch that Toombi had. They're right on the bumper of Rafael Rodriguez heading out to turn 14 and on their way to turn 50. Here we go, going down the hill on the final corner, heading up toward the main straight. It looks like Rafael Rodriguez was able to get a much better launch out of turn 15. And Toombi, again, they've been so close, but they've just not been able to get the job done.
Not quite there, but Toombi is absolutely still trying there. They're going to be pushing themselves as much as possible into turn 1, through turn 2, try to get as good of an exit into turn 3 there so they can keep applying that pressure on that Luxembourgish car right ahead of it. There's going to be a bit of a wiggle from Rodriguez. They lost a bit of traction on the exit of that turn 3 there, but there's still not enough gap for Toombi to make a set happen there. The gap has actually extended to almost half a second now as they head down the hill into turn 5 there, with also Van Viepen and Jordan Jones ahead and just getting away more and more. So there's going to be probably no more chance for these two cars, with only 2 minutes left of the race to go, remind you, to get themselves into top 2 there, but there's still anybody's race for top 3 as we're going to see a fight between Newbie, Nick, and Paolo Peschetti. See that into hairpin turn 5 here. Looks like Peschetti's just about trying to stay behind them, trying to get around the specially liberated Newbie car right ahead of them. They almost touched bumpers into before the breaking zone into turn 7 there, but there's still no change in position so far. But there's going to be now the very crucial acceleration zone up the hill through turn 8, down the hill again into turn 9. They're almost back to back, heading through this sweeping left-hander. Then it's going to be up. It's going to be a dive for Peschetti. They're going to be moving up on the inside there, maybe locking up the brakes a little bit, but they're going to be pushing themselves right alongside there. But the tree inside is going to be turning back to the outside for turn 12 and then into turn 13. It looks like Peschetti's going to be lining themselves up for another set into turn 13. It's a dive. It's going to be a set. They're going to be just about squeezing alongside, but again, inside it's turning again into the outside, into turn 14. So Newbie is just about staying ahead, but this could be the crucial part. They're going to be only at 2/10 off before they get to that long main straight. So this could be the chance that Peschetti needs to make that send.
This is absolutely what Peschetti needs. Here we go out of turn 15. They are right on the cusp of making that move done. Look at how much of a better launch Peschetti had going out of that corner. They're right on the bumper of Newbie. Here we go, heading into turn 1. They go on the inside. They're going to set themselves up for a late braking into turn 1. Can Panuseaton do it? Yes, they can. Is it going to be close? Yes, it absolutely will be. Look at how close that Newbie tried to make them work the corner, and it worked out for Panu anyway. Heading down toward turn 13 as we hear another battle. Here we go. This is the battle we've been waiting for. This is Toombi versus Rafael Rodriguez. They were able to get the send in on turn 5, but they weren't able to seal the deal. As you can see, that Rafael Rodriguez doing everything they can to keep Toombi back. It got very close going into that corner, but they were not able to get the job done. But Toombi's not done yet. Here we go on the inside. This is going to be this is the last lap. This is the last opportunity for Toombi to make that move and get that podium position. Look at how close they are. This is going to be a race to the finish. Is Toombi going to be able to do it? Here we go, heading down the hill into turn 9, looking on the inside, and they are following again. They've lost a little bit of time to Rafael Rodriguez going out of the corner, but you can see it's just close enough to where they could maybe get a job done, maybe after the Portimao corner. Here we go, heading out of the Portimao corner, heading toward the downhill section of turn 11 and into turn 12. The
You're in the
gap is
wrong track.
increased.
We're on the main straight, Wolfin. They're on the
Oh,
last lap of the track here. And no, there's not going
Oh.
to be any more change in position here. Rodriguez got themselves a much better launch through turn 14
Oh.
into 15. So they're going to keep themselves in P3 to be behind them in P4 and Katie Fox in P5. So that's going to be a very close race, but sadly no change in position here. But looks like Newbie has not giving up yet on getting beside Pesquetti there. But no, there's not going to be enough time for them to make anything happen either. So it's going to be our top 10. Johnson P1, Van Fleetman P2, Rodriguez P3, Toombi P4, Katie Tim Fox P5, Beckerbolt in P6, managing to get themselves a pretty good damage limitation from that race there. Going to be Sidona in P7, Newbie P8, P9 is going to be for Futako and Palico Grant just about squeezing themselves into that crucial top 10 position. So they're going to be starting in pole position for our feature race.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's super. It was such a rough race for Palico Grant. They had all those incidents early on. And unfortunately, that cost them way too much. But at least they were able to get enough damage control to get themselves into P10. But I think that's gonna be a rough going for the final race, because the gap is just it's gonna be so large. Unless they can win this race, I don't see them. I see the championship stand. I see that they aren't gonna really be able to really fight for this unless something major happens.
They're absolutely going to be at a disadvantage after that incident they had. And it's same thing for Philip Beckwood as well. They only got themselves into P6 after their close contact they had with Palico Grant there, so both going to be at a disadvantage for this race here. But they're going to be starting much further ahead on the grid for our next race. So they're going to be starting Beckwood in P4, Palico Grant in P1. So they're going to try to minimize their damage as much as possible. And they still have 2 more races to go after this in the Road America round here. So there's still going to be anybody's game for the lead of the championship here, and for that championship title in the end. I'm also not quite sure what happened to Velux Statera. I think they had a black flag at some point. They teleported to the pit, so I'm not sure if there was like a connection issue or a disqualification that caused them to now be the last car on the grid here to finish themselves up in P6. And that's going to be very, very dark here. So now it's going to be time for our first night race.
This will be our very first night race, and it will be an interesting fight, especially with Jordan Johnson. The winner will now start in P10 for this next race. So they're going to have a lot of work to do, especially with how tight this field is, and with where Philip Beckervold and Palico Grant are. Pali definitely has the advantage as far as positioning goes, because they were lucky enough to get the P10 exactly what they needed. But they have, unfortunately, the person that took them out in their second incident, Futaku, right next to them in P9. So that's going to make things a little bit interesting here.
I mean, I'm hoping that after those collisions that Futaku has learned their lesson, it's not going to be causing any more incident afterwards, but that's going to be a decision for the Swiftly side. We have a couple of minutes of warm-up here, about 4 minutes left to go on our session. Now, it doesn't look like anybody's going to be heading out to the track at the moment. I don't see anybody on the track. No. I think everybody's just going to be maybe having a little nap in the garage before they're going to have to stay awake for another 30 minutes of racing later on.
They are committing EEP, and it's probably best.
Yes.
The big EEP. Wait, no, not the big EEP. That would be very bad.
The small EEP. We'll call the small EEP here.
The small EEP is better. Is because somebody's going on. I think it's Philip Beckervold. I can't tell because the lights are very bright.
That is Rafael Rodriguez right there with that. Yes,
oh, it is Rodriguez. Oh, yeah.
Red, white, and blue livery car. They modeled after the flag of their country, Luxembourg, I believe.
Yeah, definitely a very nice car. They did a very good job at holding off Toombi the last race, so they definitely have. You would definitely say that they've improved, and this is yet another podium for them. So it's gonna put them in a really good spot as far as gaining positions go. So I think they should. First off, they should be very proud of what they did, and now they just need to see if maybe they can capitalize on this, maybe try to go for another great position, because they could very well, with how they've been going, they could very easily put themselves in the top 5 by the end of the series.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see very closely here because one of their rivals in the championship standings, Taliban Peak, is actually not participating at all this round here. So they're gonna be absolutely getting ahead of them before the end of this round here at Portimao, which also has quite a lot of different names. I think a lot of from what I was looking earlier in the comment in the chat here, a lot of people just wanted to make like a Portilamao, Portimao. So lots of cat-based spots you can have around here for sure.
Lots of cat-based memes. My partner would be proud.
Yeah, wolf bark. Yeah. All those funny animals here.
The ironic thing is that my partner is in fact not a cat. They are in fact the wolf.
Ah,
And yet
well,
they
that is
send.
unfortunate, but either way, it's gonna be now.
Yeah.
Rafa Rodriguez, they're getting themselves across the finish line. I don't think they're gonna be on a valid lap at the moment here. I don't think they might just have enough time to make one lap here before the warm-up period is over here. But you can see there are no lights, artificial lights on the track at all here. So the only thing illuminating the track is gonna be those headlights on those Porsche Cup cars here. And you can lose those lights if you have a big incident. So hopefully there's not gonna be any of that happening because you don't want to be driving at night without headlights.
No, that's kind of dangerous, and that's absolutely something you do not want. You can see Paliqui is also out on the track. They're I guess, trying to maybe get themselves psyched up, get ready to go, because they're going to be starting in P1 for this next race. About a minute ago, they just got out of the main straight, so I don't think they'll be able to finish this lap.
Yeah,
At this point, I think they're just trying to get their head back in the game after such a rough race. And we'll see where this goes. It will definitely be interesting.
If there is one silver lining to Paliqui's situation is that now all of their big rivals, Rodriguez, Beckevold, Jordan Johnson, they're all going to be sitting much, much further behind them. And all the cars around there's going to be Futaku, Nupi, Caesar, and they, frankly speaking, don't have the same kind of pace as Palico Grand here has. So their best chance for Palico Grand here is to just get ahead, stay ahead, and just build as much of a gap to everybody else behind them so they can just keep that position in P1 and minimize the damage they lost from that first race here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see about 10 seconds left of this practice session, and then we will be getting ready to go onto the main race. Definitely going to be a interesting start. I'm interested to see how this goes. If Pally is able to get a really good launch going out of the off the start, they should be, operative word being should be, able to kind of build a gap here. And maybe it would get them the P1 they've been needing, or they will absolutely need, to keep themselves in contention for the next race.
Something we're going to keep a very close eye on as we're going to be lining ourselves up for our feature race at night, at the middle of the night here on the track. It's going to be Palico Grand starting in P1, Futaku in P2, followed by Nupi in P3. It's going to be then Seedon in P4. There's going to be our top four of the grid here. It's going to be Beckel P5, Katie Timberfox P6, 2B P7, Rafa Rodriguez in P8. And then going to be our last two spots. It's going to be Sarah Van Vliet in P10, joined alongside by Jordan Johnson in P10. So Jordan Johnson definitely has the biggest task ahead of him, just try to extend that lead as much as possible by getting through all other 9 cars ahead of him. But from what I've seen from those last races, that's definitely going to be possible for him to do.
Yeah, it will definitely be. He's done it before. As the lights go out, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here we go. It looks like an amazing start from Palico Grant off the line. You can see here we go, heading down toward the main straight. Yeah, you can see a much better launch from Palico this time. They've got nobody behind them. Here we go into turn 1. Absolutely amazing start from Pally as they head down toward turn 2 and turn 3. You can see Futaku going to be the cork in the bottle for everybody else. Look at how much everybody's bunched up behind them, and there's trouble. That's Jordan Johnson.
Oh no! That's Rodriguez, that's Johnson, that's Van Vliet. They're all now at the very back of the grid now. They've all lost the progress they were hoping to gain at the race here. So this could be the absolute best stroke of luck for Palico Grande, because all of their main rivals are currently literally sitting at last, besides Beckham here, who has managed to just about squeeze ahead of Newbie, and now going to be hounding down on Banu Sidon here. So this is just the thing that they want here. Maybe we can see a replay of later on what happened here. It's now going to be now Van Vliet trying to get around Futaku, getting back up to their position that they want here. So going to be watching that later on here. There's going to be now also Jordan Johnson sweep out on the outside of Futaku. They're hoping to also capitalize on that same gap opened up by Van Vliet here, going to be heading down the hill. That fast left-hander into turn 9, into turn 10, 11, into that Portimao complex here. There's going to be them just about squeezing through ahead of Futaku here. Futaku taking a very, very long sweeping outside line there, going off the track there to try to avoid any more contact. That's going to be also now Van Vliet hounding on Starkey Faraday, hitting a almost touching their bumper into their rear quarter battle there, but they're going to be now diving their way through. Also, Jordan Johnson diving themselves right the way through. Now it's going to be a fight between these two rivals. They're trying to minimize the damage they lost from that early incident.
Yeah, absolutely. And look who's ahead of them. That's Indigo Lopez heading out of 14. Sarah Van Vliet's got a lot on their plate right. She's got a lot on their plate right now. She's got Indigo in front and Jordan Johnson right on the bumper and back, heading out of turn 15. It looks like Jordan's going to have a little bit of a better launch. You can see they're setting it up for turn 1. You can see they're on the outside heading into turn 1. I think Jordan's going to absolutely send it and seal the deal. No, they are not. And you can see this is actually the battle between Panu Sitanen and Philip Beckevold. They tried to get the job done and no goings there. It looks like Pally has now extended the gap. It's almost a second between him and Futaku. So that's going to be very good for them as they head down into turn 5. You can see everything's kind of, you can see Philip Beckevold finally able to get around Panu Sitanen and going into turn 5, but they still got one other car to go before they get to Paliqui Grant, and that is the most important thing right now, is to get between them. All right, so here we go. This is going to be, I believe, the replay for lap 1. Yeah, here we go into turn 3.
Ooh.
There was,
It's a bit of ping pong there. I see. Yeah, Rodriguez washed out wide on the exit of that corner there, hitting Van Vliet sideways. That then also caused them to be hit into Jordan Johnson, causing all 3 of them to spin around and head all the way to the back of the field here. So very unlucky pinball moment, but this could be a massive stroke of luck for Palico Grant there, because all of their main rivals are far down the field here. This is going to be a massive swing in points here. This could keep Palico in that championship fight here, as we keep our eye now on Toombi and Tibafox trying to get around a newbie Nick heading through this corner here. So Newbie and Katie managed to probably avoid all of that carnage happening right around them. So they're going to be now hoping to get themselves back into that top 5 fight here. Now it's going to be Newbie trying to hold off as much as possible here. They have a lot of very fast drivers behind them, so they're going to be definitely feeling the pressure here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pally is not safe. I'm going to point that out. Philip Beckevold only has Futaku to get around, and they are definitely the faster car, and they are within a second of Futaku. So all Philip needs is to just get back Futaku, and then this should turn things very interesting as we follow along this fight with Katie, Timberfox, and Newbie and Toombi here. This is getting very intense. Look at Newbie, he's on the inside, but they had a much worse exit going out of turn 4, and it's cost them dearly. Look at that. Toombi is able to get the move done on Newbie, and now only has Katie Timberfox to deal with. Katie's doing everything she can to hold that car behind them, and we'll see. Things are going well so far, but you can see Toombi is right on the rear bumper, and she is being almost a cork in the bottle, because look at all these cars behind them. That's Starkey Faraday making a move on the outside going out of turn 6, and that's Jordan Johnson right there. I'm sorry, that was Jordan Johnson making a move on Starkey Faraday, now on the bumper of Newbie, and it could be anyone's game. They're out of the Portimao complex heading toward turn 13. Is Jordan going to make another move? Yes, they are. Nice, clean move into turn 13. But, I mean, this is damage control at this point for Jordan Johnson, because they've got a ways to go.
A ways to go for Jordan Johnson, but not much more to go for Palico Grant and for Beckebot here, who has now jived up on the inside of Futaku here before turn 15, so they're going to be getting themselves right ahead there, but no, it's going to be Futaku and Paschetti, both right behind them, using that slipstream from Beckebot to try to get back up alongside, so it's going to be forcing Beckebot to get that tight defensive inside line going into turn 1 there. It's going to be Futaku hoping to make a better set on the outside.
There's trouble!
It's going to be touching! It's going to be Paschetti going through both Futaku and also almost going through Beckebot as well. They're trying to dive up on the inside into turn 3, but no, there's not going to be space for that to happen. So that tiny bit of contact between the two cars here, forcing Futaku to go wide. Paschetti says, thank you very much. I'm going to be taking that position right away from you. Now going to be hounding on Beckebot of all cars here. Hope now going to be keeping them under pressure, which is going to be keeping an opportunity for Palico Grant to get even further ahead. Palico has 3, almost 4 seconds ahead on Beckebot here, so this is the absolute best opportunity for them to just get away to try and keep their position in P1.
Yeah, this worked out amazingly for Palico Grant. Everything fell into place. what started off as a horrible start has now turned into something decent, but we still got a long ways to go. We still have over 20 minutes left, and Jordan Johnson is now in P7. I mean, if Jordan Johnson gets a podium, that almost looks like that's something what he could aim for. You can see here we go heading in. They can almost get it's a 2-for-1 getting by Toombi in this little fight between him and Katie. And now they are right on the bumper of Katie Timberfox. She's going to have to do everything she can to kind of keep Jordan Johnson back. Will it be enough? I'm not sure. Here we go out of turn 14 and on their way to 15. Jordan Johnson with a little bit of a better exit going out of 14 and into 15. This might be the moment.
This might be the moment indeed, but the gap is still not quite there yet. But it's going to be getting much closer as they're going to be heading down on that long main straight before turn 1 here. But Jordan Johnson is going to be definitely looking to make as many moves as fast and as early as possible to minimize the damage they had to gain from that early spin. They're going to be again diving on the inside into turn 1 there with Katie Timberfox actually not saying anything here. But no, it's going to be also Toombi capitalizing on the same hole that Jordan Johnson carved their way through. It's going to be also diving through that same gap that was made by Jordan Johnson, squeezing their way through. But no, Katie is not giving up. She's still there. She's still holding on. Actually, she's managed to get a bit of a better exit than Toombi, so they're still staying ahead after turn 4 there, but it's going to be Toombi right on their rear bumper heading into that tight hairpin here. There's going to be watching closely if Toombi's going to be dive. No, they're not. They're going to be staying right behind them. But yeah, Toombi was almost capitalizing on that hole carved out by Jordan. But yeah, Katie's just about holding on there, just trying their best to hold on that advance, and it's looking to be a solid defense so far.
So far, solid defense for Katie Timberfox, but you can see it's bunching them up, and it's opening the door for Newbie, who's right behind them, and is slowly but surely gaining on this little fight here. This could turn into a 3-way fight soon. You can see that Katie is taking the very defensive line to try to keep Toombi back, but they squeeze out a little bit wide, going out. I believe this was turn 11 and into 12. Here we go, heading into turn 13, looking for a move on the inside, goes to me, but no moves there. Heading into turn 14, it looks like Toombi is just within drafting distance. They could try to make a move into turn 1 if they set themselves up right. Heading down into turn 15, you can see that the gap is slowly increasing, but not by much. You can see heading into 15, Katie right there, and it could just take one small mistake. Look at how hard Toombi is pushing that car. Look at them. They're trying to break the draft. Katie is doing everything she can to set that up, but I think that might have been a mistake because it opened the door for Toombi going into turn 1. They're absolutely going to send it into turn 1. Is it going to be enough? Yes, it is. They're right neck and neck going into turn 3, heading into turn 4. Katie doing everything they can, but Toombi has the advantage going into turn 3. They were on the inside line, but it sets them up into turn 4. They touch! They touch!
It's contact! It's contact! They're both spun around. Katie Timberfox was trying to get a cutback on Toombi into turn 4 there, but no, there was just not enough space. They washed out wide. They're going to be collecting the rear bumper of Toombi. They both spun out. They've both cost very much dearly on that incident there, so it's going to be an absolute disaster for them. So they're going to try to minimize the damage they had lost. They're going to get back in that fight. Now going to be joining up by Juan, who actually dive up on the inside into Timberfox. They're going to be getting right ahead of them, but no, it's going to be Katie Timberfox just massively losing out on that one tiny mistake.
All it took was one little mistake, and look at this, Jordan Johnson in P4 now. They've just gotten by Futaku, and now all they have left is Panu Siitanen. The little gap between them and Jordan Johnson, this could turn very interesting very quickly. All Jordan needs to do is get by Panu Siitanen, and they are within striking distance of the top 3. This is not what Paliqui or Philip Beckevold wanted from this incident, but Jordan was able to lock in, and now they are sitting at the cusp of getting a podium after starting nearly last.
Yeah, nearly last indeed. And Beckevold and Paliqui, looking at the lap times, they are doing almost exactly equal lap times. They're both of them doing 42.4s, 42.6s between them. So there's not going to be much chance for them to gain ground on each other here. So it's going to be all down to Jordan Johnson to get around Peschetti, Panu Siitanen here to get themselves up into P3 and extend that gap they have made in that first stage even more. So we're going to be now Peschetti really wide on that exit, poor exit from them. We're going to keep our eye now on Van Vliet, who's going to be diving deep on the inside into turn 3 here, pushing Van Niebuhr wide there. And again, just about squeezing through into turn 4 there to get themselves up into P6, and now going to be gonna be diving down, chasing down Futaku. And that's gonna be also Rafael Rodriguez also right behind. They also make another move here as we're gonna be cutting back now into Jordan Johnson and Pescetti Panucci. Gonna be going side by side through to turn 10, to turn 11. There's gonna be now, Pescetti seems to have just backed out of that fight. And then they deciding, no, this is not my fight. I'm not gonna be fighting this.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to open the door. Jordan is now in P3 with a 2-second gap between him and Philip Beckevold. But the problem is they are all running almost the exact same time. So it's going to be a much harder job to get by these to get up to Philip Beckevold and Paliqui Grant at this point. But at this point, if you're Jordan Johnson, does that really matter? Because you're still getting a podium. That's still going to be a massive points haul for you going into the final round.
Huge points haul indeed, but these guys are racers. They want to win, so they're gonna push every last ounce of performance from these cars here to try and catch up to Beckevold, to catch up to Paliqui Grant here, to get up into that P1 spot there as much as they can here, and the gap is still gonna be shrinking between that. And looking at the lap stops here, Jordan just got the fastest lap time of the entire track here, a 42.1 compared to a 42.6 and a 42.5 from Paliqui Grant and Philip Beckevold here. So there's still over half of the race to go here, so they absolutely are not safe.
They are absolutely not safe. That's 0.3 faster. Jordan is doing everything he can to try to make up for what he has lost, and he's definitely, at the very least, he's definitely close to Philip Beckevold. It's only a 2-second gap that can be easily made up with how hard Jordan Johnson has been pushing. So this could definitely make things very interesting. We've seen these two fight before. It ended in tears. It's either ended in one or two ways. It's either ended in probably one of the closest fights we've had, or it's ended in tears, as we've seen through race 2 at VIR. So this should turn very interesting very quickly.
Don't forget the incident we also had in Hockenheim in race 1, so these two competitors are definitely going to be fighting very hard when they eventually catch up to each other, but that's still got to be probably a couple of laps away here. But the gap is definitely shrinking. That gap was originally like 2.5 seconds. The gap is already now to 1.5 seconds here, going through these next couple corners here. It looks like Beckevold just can't get the same lap times, can't get the same traction, can't get the same exit speed as Jordan Johnson is able to get. The gap is now almost 1.4, 1.3 seconds here, as they now got to be heading down through turn 14 into turn 15 here, trying to get as much speed as possible here. But no, Jordan is just an utter alien, just able to extract every last ounce of performance from that Porsche Cup car here. Gonna be down the main straight there, up the hill, through the main straight, and then again down the hill into turn 1 here. The gap is now only 1.4 seconds here. Gonna be them both across the finish line. It's gonna be a 42.7 from Beckevold, a 42.115 from Jordan Johnson. Again, a fastest lap of the entire session here. They are absolutely on a different planet at the moment, trying to get up to Beckevold.
They are giving everything he has to make up that gap from where he started. It is paying dividends, but the question becomes, are you pushing too hard? Because this could hurt them later on in the race. Their tires could be done by that point, and that could make things very hard for him if he gets ahead of Philip Beckevold. Will he be able to defend later down the line if Philip Beckevold is able to stay on the bumper of Jordan Johnson?
We're going to have to watch that very closely here. The gap is again shrinking down even more there as we head down through into turn 10, into turn 11. They're both of them trying to carry as much speed as possible into this corner. Actually, never mind. That's actually turn 8 heading up the hill, and then it can be heading down into turn 9. But yeah, the gap is now almost down to a second, so I think a couple more corners and Jordan Johnson has got to be in the draft for the HP team Beckevold car there, heading down now through turn 10 into turn 11, down the hill here with nothing but their lights illuminated there, but with the bright multicolored HP livery car here. Jordan Johnson can definitely see them, and in the rearview mirror, Beckevold can definitely see Jordan Johnson. They're gonna have to get ready to put on the defense of their life.
Yeah, it looks like it, and look at how close Jordan is getting there, getting inch by inch every corner. You can see that Philip Beckevold, you can definitely see that he knows that there's a fight coming. They're setting themselves up. I think it will probably be either this lap or the next where things will get very interesting. Jordan Johnson with a much better launch going out of turn 1. Is this going to be another fastest lap? We'll have to wait and see. Heading down toward the line, I don't think so, but it doesn't matter. They're still gaining inch by inch. And now look at how close he's getting to Philip Beckevold. Here we go. We said it was going to be within a lap or two. It's going to be now. I think it's going to be right here and right now.
Yeah, right here, right now, gap is now less than a second between them as they head down the hairpin, down the hill into the hairpin of turn 5 there. Both of them just trying to set themselves up into the best possible exit as possible to try and stay ahead. But Beckwell just doesn't seem to have the same pace performance as Jordan Johnson has there in those Porsche Cup cars in equal machinery, might I remind you. So it's going to be now Jordan Johnson trying to get themselves even closer, heading through turn 7 into turn 8, trying to get that good traction. It's going to be Beckham a little bit wide on the apex into turn 8 there, so they're managing to stay ahead a little while longer here, but the time is running out, and Beckham's going to have to put themselves in that defensive position very, very soon here. It's going to be now into 10, into 11. Again, Jordan Johnson just launching the car onto the exit, just about maximizing every single inch of the track limits there to get as much speed, much pace, much distance as possible to catch up into Beckham. Again, both of them very close and tight on that inside line there, so about equal performance there. But the gap is going to be very close here. Got to be those very crucial now. 13 into 14. Looks like Beckervold and Jordan Johnson got themselves about equal exit there. So no change in distance here so far. Now it's going to be down to the slipstream though, because no more safety for Beckervold. They're going to be in draft for Beckervold.
Yeah, here we go, heading down the main straight. You can see that Jordan Johnson had a little bit of a letter launch going out of 15. They're aiming slowly but surely. Are they going to try to maybe set themselves up for a move into turn 1? I don't think so. The gap isn't there. They're now just setting themselves up maybe to go for turn 3. Here we go into turn 2. The gap still slowly but surely creeping in. Jordan doing everything they can to maximize the corners, and they are so close. They are inching their way too. This is the point where I think where Philip Beckervold's going to have to play defensive. You can see they're coming down toward turn 5. If Jordan wanted to, he could absolutely send it down into turn 5. They are, but he tries to send it to gain a little bit of a gap, gets very close to the bumper of Philip Beckervold, but does not make the move. I think they're going to try to make a move later down the line. Here we go, heading into turn 6 and 7, and now on their way to Samsung corner, and Jordan is just so close, but they are just not close enough. They're right on the bumper of Philip Beckervold. You can see Philip Beckervold trying to maybe take a little bit more of a defensive line to keep Jordan Johnson at bay.
While Jordan Johnson was able to cleave through the field, through everybody else here, it's not going to be the same kind of challenge with Beckervold. It's going to be a considerably larger challenge to get around Beckervold here. Beckervold with a much faster car, much faster pace compared to everybody else here. So it's going to be down to Beckervold trying to keep their car in those exact right positions to hold off Jordan Johnson right behind them, but this might be too late at this point. The gap is already down to only 0.3 of a second as they're going to be heading down the turn 15 quarter here. It's going to be gapped down actually only 0.2 of a second here, so I think there's not going to be much more that Beckerwood can do to hold off the assault from the esports Solpec Precision Racing Team driver of Jordan Johnson that's going to be heading down the main straight here. Gap is shrinking on even more, closer. They're going to be almost touching bumpers as they're going to be diving themselves into turn 1 there, almost in touching distance as they're going to be standing themselves. Oh, but no,
Ooh,
both of them are
wide.
wide on the corner. They're both of them going to be getting track limits warnings there, but no change in position here so far. Jordan Johnson couldn't get themselves quite close enough to make that stint happen here, but it looks like Jordan getting themselves a much better exit off turn 3 compared to Beckervold into turn 4. So there's going to be a gap again down to only 2/10. That's going to be shooting themselves down the hill in pitch black darkness. But no, Jordan Johnson is not making those darts there. They're just going to be waiting patiently here, just going to be squeezing their way through. They're going to be almost touching on Beckervold's rear bumper there on the exit of turn 5 there. And yeah, they're just going to be close. They're just going to be keep squeezing, going to keep pressuring them and waiting for them to make that mistake.
Yeah, they got very close. You can see here we go into turn 6. Jordan thinking about it, taking a move on, looking on the inside, but not able to get it done. Here we go into heading toward turn 8 and turn 9. Jordan is right there. It's just going to take one more move. Here we go on the inside. This is going to be a Portimao corner. Looks like they're going to absolutely send it in the Portimao corner. They're even Stevenson touch. They touch going into the corner, and it looks like Philip Beckervold may have just barely eked it up, but they've gotten squeezed wide, and now Jordan Johnson is able to finally get the job done going into 13 and is now in P2.
Bouncing themselves off each other like they were pinballs, and somehow they're still both in one piece. Jordan Johnson through into P2. Now it's going to be them down to chasing down Pelican Grant for these last 10 minutes of the race here. They did lose quite a lot of time. They're fighting with Beckervold there, so this is going to be a humongous mountain to climb, making up a 4.4 second gap in the next 10 seconds, and also getting around Pelican Grant here. It looks like while they were stuck fighting here, Pelican Grant has been trying to extend those gaps as long as possible here. They actually got themselves a better lap time compared to everybody else in the last quarter here. But that's going to be a fight between Rodriguez and Van Fiepen heading down into turn 1 there. Rodriguez on the inside, Fiepen on the outside there. They're going to be shooting themselves up into 2, but it looks like Van Fiepen is going to be making a cutback. They're going to be staying alongside into turn 2. It's going to be into turn 3. It's still going to be on the inside line there. Van Fiepen might just about squeeze their way through here. Yes, it is. She's still holding on that position here so far, with Rodriguez having to slot themselves behind again to try again later.
They tried. It got very close. They've done this before, but Sarah Van Fiepen saw it coming and worked and did everything they could to do the over-under. It worked out perfectly for her, but Rafael Rodriguez is not done. Here we go, out of turn 5, heading into 6. It looks like they are fairly close, and it will probably be another fight in Portimao corner, because they are just juking it out. You can see Sarah Vipa goes a little bit wide going out of the corner. That could be huge for Rafael Rodriguez heading into turn 9, heading toward turn 10. Portimao corner, is it going to be enough for Rafael Rodriguez? No, it is not. The gap is decreased a little bit, but not by much. Rafael still has a lot to go. They're heading toward turn 13 now, and the gap is still fairly there. It looks like they're maybe going to try to set themselves up for another turn 1 shootout.
Yeah, we've got to watch them very closely here through these very crucial turn 13, 14, 15 corners here. Looks like Rodriguez got this as a really good exit of turn 40 here to just follow right behind Van Fiepen heading down into turn 15. Both of them a very wide entry into the corner here, allowing themselves to carry as much speed as possible and drift out wide there. The gap doesn't seem to be quite there to make any moves happen yet there, but it is only 3 tenths, now shrinking down to 2 tenths as they're heading down almost back-to-back into turn 1 here. Rodriguez trying to maybe capitalize on a move into turn 3 here. Both of them shooting themselves as fast as possible here. Both of them almost hitting those track limits on the end there, but still no chasing position here so far. Not enough space for Rodriguez to make an overtake here. But we also see a bit of a track ahead of this. Going to be Futaku and Batusita. Actually, that could be lap track ahead of them, if I'm not mistaken.
This could be lap traffic, which would be very interesting. No, it is not. It is Futaku.
Oh,
and yeah, it is Futaku and the others. So this fight, normally fighting would make things a little bit slower, but it is not. It has caused Sarah Van Fiepen and Rafael Rodriguez to slowly but surely gain on Panu Sitanen and Futaku inch by inch, and that's going to be huge for Sarah. They have to make up as much ground as they can to try to keep themselves in this championship fight. Heading out of turn 9, you can see Rafael Rodriguez is still right behind them, but the gap is not there. So who knows? They may try to do it later down the line.
Talk about a progression of inches. We're talking about a progression of miles with Jordan Johnson. They've gained a whole second on Palico Grande in the last lap here. 42.4 for Jordan Johnson, 43.2 for Palico Grande there. So Palico does not seem to be very comfortable in that bluey Porsche Cup car here at the moment here, with also Billy Beckham just about staying behind them, hoping to gain even more ground as possible here. Going to be another lap around here. It looks like there was a mistake from Palico Grande there, causing themselves to lose huge amounts of time here. So the gap is now only 3.5 seconds here, but with only 5 minutes left of the race to go here, it's still probably going to be too much for Jordan Johnson to catch up and pass Palico Grande there, but the pressure is absolutely on for Palico to just maximize everything out of that car at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got, I believe this will probably be at least 3 or 4 laps left for Palico Grande to keep this win, to seal the deal for this win. As you can see, Jordan actually is not alone though. You can see Philip Beckenvold is only within a second of Jordan Johnson. I almost want to say that Philip Beckenvold is using Jordan Johnson to try to gain up on Palico Grande, because they are just holding onto the bumper of Jordan Johnson and keeping things, I almost want to say sane, but I don't know. They obviously aren't going to have the gap yet, but if Jordan catches up to Palico, this could turn into a huge 3-way fight at any time.
If it's going to be a momentous task for Jordan Johnson to get around Palico in the last 5 minutes of the race here, it's going to be a gigantic task for Beckenvold to try and get around these 2 cars at the same time here. But all they can do is just try to cling on to Jordan Johnson's rear bumper here, use that toe to just stay behind them and stay in that draft there. So it's going to be all down to play for these last 5 minutes here. We also see some fighting developing between Katie Timfox and Toomby right behind them as well. They're also trying to get back up to that fight that they had lost earlier here. Toomby again got caught in that incident between Katie Timberfox after they touched in turn 4 here, but looks like they're again fighting each other into turn 5. up the hill into turn 6 and then into turn 7. They're trying to get a bit of a better exit as possible. In fact, this is actually turn 30 here. They're going to be heading down the hill into turn 14, then into turn 15, trying to get that slipstream to get around. The Katie Fox is actually really close, only 2/10. This is the distance you need to get up alongside and maybe make a pass happen into turn 1 here. So we're going to be watching very close there. Here we go. It's going to be Katie Fox inching themselves closer, closer, and closer in the main straight here. They're looking around, they're weaving left and right here, keeping themselves in the rear view mirrors, and they're going to be having a bit of a peek into turn 1 there. But no, there's got to be enough space for them to make a send happen here. But they are getting closer still. There still could be another chance as they head down into turn 3. But no, they're both in quite late on those brakes there. But looks like Tombi got themselves an even worse exit. They're going to have to be really slow in turn 4 here, giving an opportunity for Team Fox to get themselves even closer. Gap is only 2/10 again, heading down this very crucial back straight here into the hairpin. But is there going to be a dive happening? No dive happening so far here. They're going to be staying behind them, keeping that pressure on Tombi to hopefully make it a send happen in the next couple corners.
Yeah, it's been pretty tight between these two. This is going to be a rematch, and now you can see Katie slowly but surely, she is gaining on Tombi. This is going to make things very interesting going further down, heading, I believe this will be up the hill, heading toward turn 9 and into turn 10, turn 10 Portimao corner. You can see Katie thought about it going into Portimao complex, but was not able to get the job done. Now going to set them up going into turn 12 and then on their way to turn 13, heading up the hill toward turn 13. Is there going to be anything going on? No, but they're very, very close. They just need to keep that gap going, and they may be able to try to do it again in turn 1. The gap is there. It's only 3/10 again. So now they just need to get a really good launch going into 15, and they may be able to get the job done.
It looks like they just got the launch they wanted here. They're again, actually, no, never mind. They got themselves washed wide through turn 15 here, so they're a bit farther away from Tombi as they head down the straight into turn 1. But this could be a better chance for them to set themselves up for a move heading into turn 3 here, because this is going to be the big braking zone where they can make a send happen here. Both of them washing really wide into turn 1's exit there, trying to get themselves as close as possible into turn 3. But again, not enough space for Team Fox to make a move happen here. But again, a really slow move from Tombi. Got to be compromising their exit of turn 4 here, getting themselves even closer into Katie Team Fox's arms here. So they're going to be gapped down to only 1/10, only a 1/10. They're going to be shooting themselves on the inside into turn 5. Here we go. It's going to be themselves forcing Tombi wide there. There's going to be now forcing them to be side by side, heading through turn 6 into turn 7. So there's going to be Tombi trying to capitalize, stay alongside, so they can again stay on the inside, heading into turn 7. But no, they're going to be backing up. They're going to be pulling back. There's going to be Katie Team Fox finally getting themselves through the German racing driver here, now into P9.
P9, but I don't think it's over yet. Look at this. Tombi trying to make a move on the inside. Was not going to let that happen. Katie now trying to do everything she can to keep Tombi behind her. Now heading up toward Portimao complex. This has worked for Tombi before. I don't think it's going to happen this time. Heading down into turn 12 and down to turn 3. That's trouble. That's Rafael Rodriguez.
Oh no! They've lost it. I think
there?
that's going to be... Yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened. That seems to be on turn 13 or 14. Let's see what happened on the replay here. They're going to be chasing down Futaku in one replay here. I saw some yellow flags flashing happening as well here. It's going to be Futaku diving deep. No, they're going to touch. They have contact, and it looks like Rodriguez just got caught out by that. That's going to be on the exit of turn 30. They just got caught up by that contact happening between Futaku and Van Fleet, and they just spun around on their own.
Yeah, and that huge contact between Futaku and them, that was... I don't know what happened there, but now Sarah Van Vliet once again trying to catch up to Futaku, and now it looks like they just got a little bit of a better launch. I believe this is out of turn 4. Yeah, out of turn 4 on our way to heading down toward turn 5. Is there going to be a move here? No, there is not. And now... Oh, maybe not. Futaku going wide out of turn 5. That's opened the door for Sarah Van Vliet. Here we go. Heading up the hill into turn 6 and on their way to turn 7. Looking for a move. Oh, wait, yes, Sarah's already got the move done. Now she just got to pull away.
Yeah, we also, that 30 minutes, this is going to be the last lap of our race here, depending on where Palico Grand is going to be on the map here. But this is not going to matter at all for Tombi and Katie Team Fox. We're still locked in that fight as they're going to be heading through these turns here, heading up the hill into... I think that's going to be heading into turn 11 and 10 and 11 here. Going to be almost side by side, back to back here hoping to just get as much pace as possible. There's not going to be much time for any of these cars here to make those moves happen here. It's going to be Pelico Grant crossing the finish line in first place. A good recovery drive from what they had on their first round, followed by Jordan Johnson and Beckham in the background there in P2, P3 here. Sadly, they couldn't get quite close enough to make that sin happen here. We're going to cut back into Toombi and Timmy Fox there. Now it's got to be much more time. That's got to be down into turn 13, turn 14 here. So this is going to be an absolutely perfect exit for Katie Tim Fox and for Toombi to get themselves any chance at all to try and get alongside there. But the gap seems to be a bit too large for there to be any moves happening. It's going to be both of the competitors shooting down the hill for one last time. Through turn 50, it looks both of them got themselves a pretty good exit, so there's not going to be enough space or time for them to make a move here. So it's going to be Katie Tim Fox in P9 and P10 for Toombi, running out of top 10.
Yeah, absolutely good fight between Katie and Toombi, and Katie was able to get the move done on the very right at the very end, as Pelico Grant gets the win with an absolutely amazing launch in lap 1 and was just able to hold the whole race to themselves. And with Jordan Johnson and Sarah Van Viepen having that issue early on, I think that really helped out Pelico Grant, because they were able to just make as big of a gap as they could now. But now with Jordan Johnson in P2, I don't know. They still have a chance, but how much?
We'll have to wait for C, because that's going to be P1 in race 1 for Jordan Johnson, P2 in race 2 for Jordan Johnson. That's going to be a huge amount of points compared to Beckerbolt and Pelico Grant. So they're absolutely going to be shooting ahead of the standings for the final round of our race to go here. But that's going to be us bringing a conclusion to a very fun race here at Portimao. So there's going to be one more race left to go next week in Road America. So it's going to be a very different experience for all of our competitors compared to Portimao. A lot less elevation change, a lot more straights here, and a lot more fast sweeping corners here. So this is going to be our last chance for all of our competitors to get those points here. There's still a whole whopping 52 points left for all of our competitors to get here. So this could still be a huge swing in the championship standings depending on what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be very interesting, and I am told that this will possibly be in the rain, which will definitely make things very interesting. VIR was partly wet, and we had some of the closest fighting we had, so I'm interested to see how well our racers will hold out in Road America in the wet, as we see Pelico Grant doing some celebratory donuts for winning that race. Absolutely deserved. And now it really just comes down to this last race and to see how it goes.
Well deserved indeed, but what's going to happen, you're going to have to just tune in next week to find out. So for now, that's going to be us wrapping it up here in the commentator booth. So that's going to be me, Denak, Kalmari, followed by Wolfin, Ravenloft in the commentator booth, and joined by Dan Maurer here in the background, holding us at the cameras to make sure we get all this lovely action here in pitch black Portimao. You can see there's absolutely nothing you can see anywhere once the lights are out here. So that's going to be lights out for us here at the Simufur commentary team here. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning in, and tune in next week for the last round of the finale. But until then, let's really good have a great day.